couple of quick postural notes. These are a couple of good things to keep in mind for generally good posture with Tai Chi and Qigong. Something that seems to come up quite often when people are first starting out with the practice and they're getting these prompts or cues from their instructor or the book they're reading or the videos that they're watching. And sometimes these little nuances of the postures can fall between the gaps, so to speak. So we'll just look at a couple of them briefly today. The beginning posture that quite often gets mentioned, whether it's something like crane flaps wings or lift the mortar, the Tor Yu, the two-hand push, they all involve the tucking the tailbone under, lengthening the lower spine. So when I'm sitting back, whether it's in this stance here or this stance here, what am I trying to accomplish there? Well, I want to feel length and relaxation through my lower spine to reduce compression on the lower vertebrae and increase mobility in the hips generally. And so what I'm doing there is I'm taking the bottom of the pelvis and lifting it up and forward, and in doing so I'm increasing the length in my lower back. And I can even add to that a little bit. If I draw my abdomen a little bit and pull my belly button in towards my spine a little and really lengthen, almost create a concave or sort of a C shape with my lower spine there. And that's really it's gonna do two things. It's gonna stretch out my lower back. If I'm standing here like this, most people generally have a little bit of compression just from gravity in their lower back here. But if I tuck my tailbone under and lengthen that lower spine, stretch it out, it gets rid of that compression because that lower spine is now almost, instead of going this way, it's almost going that way. And then that's going to loosen off all these tendons that connect my lower rhomboids, my sacrum, my lower vertebrae around to the front of my hips into my sort of hip adductors here. It's going to reduce that strain and tension, and it's going to give me a little bit more mobility in the hips, and that's what we're going for. So whether I'm doing the Tor Yu and I'm sitting back, you can see there I'm angling my pelvis forward from the bottom and leaning the top of the pelvis back. That's also, not only is it creating that mobility I just talked about, but it's also lowering my center of gravity. It's taking that hip and bringing it that much closer to my heel, which allows me to stay balanced and move just that much more naturally and comfortably in that range. And it's the same with lift the mortar, tuck that tailbone under and drop back. That's the first thing I do, lowering that center of gravity. And that's another one, crane flaps wings, same one. Tuck that tailbone under, drop back down, lengthen that lower spine, and then go into the movement that way. So that's tucking the tailbone is essentially that. One other one that we can look at with the Tor Yu is the feet. What are the feet trying to do here? What's the posture? So if I'm starting in this position, the sort of ready position, the Hun Yuan, neutral position, which will get a video all on its own, and then I'm stepping forward and maintaining that shoulder width between the feet. That's really what I need to do here. I don't want to have my feet in line with one another like so. There's not enough horizontal stability, or sort of horizontal side to side stability this way. I'm too off balance leaning side to side. I need a good solid base underneath me, shoulder width apart like so. Here it is from the other side. And you'll notice my rear foot will naturally want to go onto an angled line there relative to the front one. So when I'm in this posture, my front leg is in line with the direction that I'm facing. My rear leg is off on a 45-degree angle. So when I sink back, my hips will naturally want to turn to match the line of that rear foot, like this. And then when I go forward, this hip is coming forward and turning over, and it's squaring my hips. And now I'm standing that way. So this is sort of the postural tip that we're looking for with the Tor Yu, like so. So we have a two-hand push, and that's how I want to have my feet. And you notice when I go forward, there's weight. I'm not lifting my heel, but the weight is coming up off the heel. That's an exaggeration. My heel will still stay down. My hamstrings are extended. My lower back is nice and straight. I'm not doing this, not swaying my back. But my hips are turning, and so that's naturally, there's a little bit of rotation in that rear foot. So as the weight comes off of it, it can rotate to square the hips. Now that's an exaggeration. You're probably not going to want to move that much, but there is a little bit of that. As the weight comes forward onto the ball of the foot and the leg straightens, the hip turns over, that heel can turn just a little bit, like you're putting out the world's smallest cigarette. Like so. So weight goes back, weight goes onto the heel, weight comes forward onto the front foot and onto the ball of the rear foot, and that heel can just slide across the floor. Again, it's not coming up, it's staying in contact with the floor. So if you're trying to work on your Tor Yu, your two-hand push, and you're wondering what should the lower body look like, or what should it be doing, that's basically it. And another good thing to notice is this front leg. A really common postural mistake when people are first starting, quite often, is they're used to their hips moving as one solid unit. So if I go back and my hips turn, what happens to that front hip? Well, it wants to turn with the rear one. So you get this happening. And this knee starts kind of drifting in. Sometimes that foot will kind of lift up on the outer edge when we sit back. And we really don't want that to happen. What we'd rather have is that foot stays pretty firmly planted. It doesn't move, but as I go back, I'm going to have to sort of open the inside line of this upper quad and allow almost a little teeny bit of compensatory, that's the word, rotation in the upper thigh to happen, just to keep that knee and foot in line. So it's not, this isn't happening when I go back, rather this is happening. So it almost feels like this front leg is, let's see, maybe from this angle, stretching away from the rear leg a little bit. So there we have it, just a couple of postural pointers to help people get started with get all their drills nice and in order for practice on their own.